Aloha and welcome to Connection to the Cosmos with your host, me, Dr. Lisa Thompson, where I have out of this world conversations with extraordinary people. Today, I am so excited to have my good friend and soul sister, April Dodd, on, and I'll bring her on in just a moment. But just a couple of quick announcements. First, if you are watching this on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can get all the new podcast releases. If you're listening on any of the podcast outlets, thank you so much. If you're here watching on Facebook, please give us your comments and we will be happy to answer those. Another announcement that I have also is that Connection to the Cosmos, Remembering Your Galactic Heritage and Embracing Your Oneness is available on Amazon as well as my website. Amazon will get it to you faster though. And my Oracle deck, Connection to the Cosmos Oracle deck, is available. And you can get both of those on my website at mysticmanta.com or drlisajthompson.com. And if you are visiting the Big Island of Hawaii, come on one of my Big Island UFO tours and see the night sky in a way that you will never forget. Okay, so now, without further ado, we're going to bring on Miss April Dodd. Hi, April.
Hi, Lisa.
So I'm going to just share with the audience who you are, for those that don't know. For the last 20 years, April L. Dodd, MA, has been helping divine women design a life more powerfully driven by extraordinary living than by dull mediocrity. Internationally known as a Transformational Life Design Coach, April is one of the first and select few certified and accredited US-based Belief Coding Facilitators, a mind-blowing subconscious process that helps women to gain their inner authority by going from deeply stuck, trapped, and limited to unwavering and free in a short order of time. Can't wait to talk about that since I got to have my session with you. Hailed as absolutely phenomenal by the very founder of Belief Coding, April serves as a best-selling author, speaker, and alchemist of beautiful living to women from all over the world who have drawn inspiration, guidance, and potent spiritual direction to embody a soul-aligned life with ease, power, and femininity. With an exceptional master's in spiritual psychology, 3 best-selling books, and an unshakable obsession with stalking the mystery between soulful spirituality and joyful pragmatism, April has been sharing her own generative processes for an extraordinary 20 years to motivated women who are ready to drop their excuses and move into a higher realm of personal power. April's straightforward and loving approach dares her clients to shake things up and be the evidence of spirit, finding celebration through them. Wow, April. So much goodness there. And I do want to just give the audience some background as to how you and I first came into contact. We were both fortunate to be speakers for the Celebrate Your Life Soul Fest a couple of years ago. And we were part of that speaker program. And I have loved you since day one of meeting you. And then, we've been in masterminds and all sorts of other parenting group together. We have a lot in common. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate you being here and how much I love you.
Thank you, Lisa. That's so nice to hear. I didn't know that. So thank you.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So before we get into all the great things that you do, the first question that I always ask my guests is, what kind of household did you grow up in your childhood? Was it spiritual? Was it religious? Or something else?
All right. Well, that's always an interesting question. And it's interesting because I'm the youngest of 6 and all of us had different experiences.
Oh.
And, we all come into the world in a different way with a different curriculum to have to fulfill and that's embedded in us. And for me, we had attempted to go to church a number of times, but my dad was an alcoholic.
Okay.
And especially when I was younger. And so my mom was not about to take 6 kids to church. So, and she had to work extra to help, make up for what my dad was losing. But over the years, I would go to church with friends. No church in particular, I just loved being in the energy of the space. I just loved the sacredness of it and the ritual. And I used to talk to whatever that source was. I didn't know what it was called. People around me called it God, and so I called it God. It was actually when I was 3 years old that I had my first, what I'm calling now, spiritual experience. But I always had this knowing this of this presence around me. It didn't feel separate from me. It just like it came with the package of being born into this planet, and here I was. And it was my third birthday, and we just had a celebration inside. And I wrote this in one of my books. You might be, I think you're part of the same book. I'm not sure. All the compilations we've done.
Yeah.
But I went outside to celebrate and show my friends my new toys, and my friends were the sky, the tree, and whatever that presence that I knew was there. That was just, of course it's there. There was no question about it. And so that was kind of my first experience. And I went out there and I went to show them, and I just remember feeling how great life was. And I think I remember saying that, like, life is so great. And then you could hear my family loud in the background. And I turned and looked, and then I looked back up the sky, and I was like, why doesn't everybody get that? And in that instant, it was like the words I would use now is like I was downloaded with this knowing of that I was here to help show how great life was.
Mm.
And so I didn't take that as like, I am better than anybody or anything like that. It was like, oh, okay, great, let's do this. And of course, I've had a number of iterations for what that means.
Mm-hmm.
There was the ego part of me, in those years. And then there was I got to get everybody on board. Everybody's got to have a great life. And, there's a lot of teachings that I've learned in that process. And my dad was the one who would talk to me more about things like that. My dad studied history.
Okay.
So he had next to his table just stacks of books, history books on anybody from Hitler to Jesus. And he would always tell me, April, learn from the greats. And there are many of them. Take what works and leave the rest. And that's always been my process. And because of my childhood and growing up in a family of dysfunction and being highly sensitive, I never wanted anybody to feel the pain that I had felt growing up. Just being alone and crying and feeling the experiences I had. And so mixing all this together, it became my passion to really hold a hand out to people and walk together to come home.
Yeah.
And for others to see that life is really great, and we can find those ways, and we can have the support we need, and we can get out of the dysfunction, we can get out of the hard places, and that love really is the answer. And so that's been my compass since I was very little. Sometimes I wished it wasn't there because I can't stop thinking about it, can't stop focusing on it. Like I'd like to take a vacation sometimes from it, but it's definitely a deep calling within me that just started by being in the environment, the dysfunction, and just the nudging to go ahead and learn it in my own way. And that's how it started when I was young.
Well, that's beautiful. And sometimes, I've learned this personally, sometimes those really hard situations that we're in is where the most growth is and evolution for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So we shouldn't be afraid of those places.
Right.
Just the place we got to go through to get to the other side and reveal the gems that are waiting for us. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, so then what did that look like going through, I guess, your teenage years or into your early adulthood in terms of trying to heal those parts of yourself? Like, what were some of the different processes that you did in your early life before you then now came across belief coding, which we'll get to?
Yeah. So in high school, I was just kind of, how do you say that? I tried to fit in thinking I should, right?
Yeah, right.
Only to realize I didn't want to because it didn't resonate with me. So I didn't mind I loved being by myself. But I always also felt like I was missing out. So I had a couple really close friends that I could really be myself with and do, weird, wonky things. And I had a friend whose mom was pretty spiritual, more into the crystal kind of spiritual. And her and I would stand in the kitchen and chat while my friends were, putting on makeup and trying on clothes. And I would stand and talk in the kitchen with my friend's mom. And so that was, kind of my touchstone then. I would journal sometimes or write to God, or I would do my own anything, pray to God or pray to angels or whatever. Just I didn't know what to call it back then. I just knew that there was something else. And so I actually went to school and studied music because music was a passion of mine. It was my way to be free
Yeah.
and to express myself and to give myself a voice, because I was actually hiding my own voice behind instruments, but it was my way of getting something out. And then I went to a master's program where I earned my spiritual psychology master's degree. And in that program, you do something called a life project, where you do something that you've always wanted to do, but something got in your way, or mostly you, right? But something got in your way. Maybe you got married or joined the army, or you just had a deep sense of belief that really kept you from that thing that you couldn't ever really let go of. And we got a chance to do that. And so I set a path um, to take voice lessons and dance lessons and acting lessons, because it's what I really wanted to do. Because in first grade, I was told by a little girl who was in second grade that I was ugly, had a rotten voice, and a rotten smile. And I believed her. I stopped smiling for years. I wouldn't sing. I'd sing in the closet, and then as I got older, I'd sing in the car. And so, and I would hide my beauty too. I was too afraid that people wouldn't be friends with me. And it wasn't about what I looked like. For me, it was, hey, do you want to be friends? Like, I was excited to be here on the planet. And so when I got into this master's program and I got to take those dance lessons and acting classes and voice lessons, and I landed an audition here in Austin. And the director, when I got done singing, I gave him my resume, which had one thing on there, which was I was a music teacher. And I didn't have any experience. And he looked at me and he said, "So have you been in a show before?" And I said, "Well, I kind of," and I pointed hesitantly to the one at the bottom that said, I was in this show that I kind of put on together with some first graders." And he looks up and he goes, "So you've never been in a musical before?" And I was like, "Oh, that's it. At least I tried."
Yeah.
And he takes his glasses off and he looks at me and he says, "You mean to tell me you've been hiding that voice for this long?" And I just I screamed all the way down the highway. I got the part in the show. Like, it was the most amazing day. And I did that by having a deep, deep connection with my spirit. I did that by the way I was talking to myself and the way I was healing the old wounds from my childhood and really deepening my connection with my source, with my spirit. And so in that program and graduating with a master's in that, it got me out of teaching. And that's when I started to coach others on how to do the same kind of things, go after the things that they most wanted and get the things that were in the way out of the way so you could fully be yourself.
Yeah.
So that's what I did before I came to Belief Coding. But I've been coaching for 20 years and I honestly started to get bored in the sense that everybody's calling themselves a coach. Everybody's saying the same thing. Everybody's marketing the same way, having the same kind of programs. And they're doing the things that I was doing in the beginning when nobody knew anything about it. And then I went and had my babies and came back out, and all of a sudden everybody's a coach. And, I'm swimming in a red ocean of everybody, going after each other to have their own space. So I really was super excited when I stumbled across this ad on Facebook. And
so that's how you found it? An ad on Facebook?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. And so it comes across your path. And I don't remember if we've ever done your human design. Do you know what you are in your human design?
I think I'm a generator.
Okay. So if you are, then you are waiting to respond to something. So that Facebook ad would be your thing that you're responding to.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
I did. And I took the free 3-day event.
Okay.
And I was actually gardening at the time. And what's interesting about this was last fall.
Mm-hmm.
I took the 3-day event and I was gardening, something I never do. But I was doing that because my whole spirit being needed to have my hands in the dirt.
Okay.
Because just about a month before that, I had what some people would call a Kundalini Awakening, a spiritual quickening that just came to and through me and just rocked my world. And I could hear things, see things, feel things, know things. The veil had been very thin. And it was like all these layers. Like, I imagine when I was on stage, you had these backdrops that could pull down from the ceiling. It was like they all got pulled up, and all of a sudden I could see in this profound way, and the words that would come in, and it was really jarring for me. So I needed to get grounded, and I was listening to this class as I was gardening,
Mm-hmm.
and I was following along with the steps. And it was on the third day that I asked a question of myself. In the belief coding process, you come with a discomfort, something I was uncomfortable about, nothing huge, not the big guns.
Yeah.
And it led me to a memory that I would never have put together with the problem that I was having, the current problem. Like, that little thought felt so obscure, that little memory, that little experience, but yet that was the one that started the whole thing. I can tell you that years in therapy never would have brought me there.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So that's how I got into it. I was like, okay, wow, this was pretty powerful. And it was something new, and it was rapid. It was rapid transformation. And then as I started studying more and becoming certified, just seeing the testimonies were just, it's the first time I could authentically say mind blowing.
Okay. Well, so let's talk about how this modality was created, or who the founder is, and
Mhm.
like how long it's been around, and maybe some of the mechanisms of it.
Yeah, for sure. So the founder is Jessica Cunningham. She's this gorgeous, beautiful, I don't know, I think she's 38. She lives in the UK. She's been studying all these different modalities, CBT, and NLP, matrix reimprinting, past life regression, positive psychology, EFT, like all the things, and not finding the one that was the silver bullet, right? We all find these, tapping is really great, but it only gets you so far. And even
Right.
my master's program, there's a lot of healing in that, but there were places that it just couldn't go.
Yeah.
And that was my frustration in my coaching. Is like, I really wanted more for my clients and for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so she put these pieces together in such a way, with these questions and the process, that created belief coding. And it really just came out last year, and it has exploded since. And so I think right now that we are at about 23, I think, US based facilitators. Most of them are in the UK right now.
Okay.
And I'll be the first US trainer to train facilitators to become facilitators,
Okay.
coming here soon. So if anybody's interested in
Yeah.
that'll be coming up for sure. So anybody who's like, really wanting to help their clients have the transformation they've been looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I wanted. And so that's how it started. She was also on The Apprentice in the UK. I don't know how long ago, but she's this down to earth, authentic um, machine who like creates what she creates. She gets these downloads and creates them, and they're successful and they're authentic. She's very accessible. And so
Mm-hmm.
building that relationship with her, and wanting to really help bring it over here, has been the next course of action that we're on. So that's super exciting.
That is. Well, so let's talk about then over this last year
Mm-hmm.
for yourself, how belief coding has changed your life. And then we can have some different examples of your clients, and I'll
Yeah.
share my story.
Yeah. So in my life, the first example was the one, just a simple one. In the free class, I was like, okay, I'll give this a shot. Thought of something that was a discomfort, and I was like, okay, money blocks. Let's go with that one. Nothing super deep.
Yeah.
And where it led me to was actually a really positive experience. Most of the time when we're like in therapy or we do all these processes, we think it's going to be a negative experience.
Yeah.
This one was a positive experience of my dad. I would ask him for money. I'm going out with my friends. Hey, Dad, can I borrow some money? He'd say, sure. Go get my wallet. Go grab the 10. There'd only be a 20. Hey, Dad, there's only 20. It's okay. Take the 20, bring back the change. And he trusted me above a lot of my other siblings. He trusted me. So they felt like an honor.
Mm-hmm.
And subconsciously, and I didn't know I was doing this, but subconsciously, I was taking in that my dad felt like a good dad for providing for me.
Okay.
My dad felt like a good dad because I was trustworthy.
Mm-hmm.
And I would bring back, maybe $17 when I only asked for 10, and he'd be fine with it. I never crossed the line and was like always taking advantage of things. And so what that established in me was this thought that I never knew was there, which was, if I make more money than my father, then he won't loan me money. He won't need to. Then he won't feel like a good dad. He won't feel proud of himself. He'll start drinking and then he'll die.
Wow.
That was the train of thought that when I went in and did the belief coding process was revealed to me, that my money block was in large part afraid of making more money because my dad would die. Like, of course it doesn't make sense, but the subconscious holds the meta experience we're having at the same time as we're having the physical exchange, right?
Right.
So that was the first one. Even deeper for me was the process where I was working on the old belief of I'm unhelpable. Like, if I go into a new program or start something, it'll only be successful for a little bit and then it'll come down. And I will have had to work super hard to get that little bit before it falls apart. And everybody else will get it, but it's not meant for me.
Okay.
And so this, I'm unhelpable, I
Yeah.
have to settle, I have to tolerate, I have to work super hard. Everybody else is going to get it. And there's going to be a few of us that aren't, and I'm going to be one of those people. And it was written in code by God. That's the belief that April, hey, you're going to be there to help show people how to settle. Like for their life lessons, for the good of their life lessons. Like, this is really the ingrained belief that was in me.
Mm-hmm.
Doing the belief coding process, I got to realize, I get to have an experience with that actual covenant that I had with God, and to literally complete the covenant in the agreement with God.
Yeah.
And create a whole new one that felt so cellular for me, that coming out, I literally felt free for the first time of these chains that say I have to settle. I'm not, it's never going to be for me. And so now I feel like I'm super excited about what's coming. I can't wait for the things that are coming. Like, I feel like I've just been set free, and it's amazing. And the things that are already starting to show up, people requesting for me to be a part of their wellness centers here in Austin, people just coming to my door to like do work on the house. We talk and they're like, I want a session. It's not like, oh, that sounds great, give me your card. They're signing up for a session.
Yeah.
So like, it's starting to flow because I'm out of my own way now, which is such a freeing feeling.
That is. And I know that a lot of our audience is going to resonate with that because I think that people are the main cause of their own, like they're their own blocks, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So can you share a couple of examples of clients that you've helped that have had like some really major transformations?
Yeah. In fact, it's one that happened this morning.
Okay.
Well, I got the message this morning, and this is still ongoing.
Right.
But I have a client who's a young football player, and he's 17, and he's had body aches and
Okay.
just tensions, and just his body's just aching. They couldn't figure out why. He was also throwing up on the football field. Goes out for a game, getting worse and worse. And so they did all the things, right? They went to the doctors, he went to the chiropractor, got a whole bunch of work done for a long period of time. Some things started to shift for him, but the tension is still there. The MRI showed nothing. Like, there's nothing showing up anywhere. So they're just like mind boggled here.
Right.
So we share the same chiropractor who heard about my work and wants, like I said, he wants me to be a part of his new wellness center to work on the mind and the belief aspect in relation to the body. He referred me to this boy that he was working with. So we had our session this week, and he had a game the next day. So the test was to see if the belief that we worked with actually coded. Now, I will say this, we didn't actually get through the full session. He's new at it. He's a guy. Guys kind of operate a little differently when you're doing some of this process, so it can take longer. But I knew he was toast and I was too. It was a 2-hour session. And so we did most of it, but not actually the main meat of the belief coding. So we got to a part of it, and I gave him a taste of what it's like. We got to work with a little part of him, a younger part of him that came forward, just a little 5-year-old
Okay.
inside of him who had the experience of being at school. There was a race in the garden, and he lost the race. And for whatever reason, that was the memory that the subconscious brought forward to work with. And we trust the subconscious because
Yeah,
it knows what's connected to what's going on in our body.
exactly.
So anyway, we have this session. I gave him this 5-minute experience after we did all the talking and all the other things, and give him the experience of having a connection with the inner 5-year-old. And so there was that. We're going to meet next week. So I texted him this morning and I said, hey, I know your game was last night. How did you feel? And he wrote back and he said, I threw up. And I was like, oh, bummer. I'm like, we're going to do something about this.
Yeah.
But then he says, but I felt great afterward. And I said, well, is that how you normally feel? And he said, absolutely not. And I said, that's incredible. What did you notice was the difference? He said, I just felt lighter this time. It didn't keep going on. I didn't throw up anymore. And then I said, I don't remember what I said, but what he wrote at the very end was, it's crazy. And I wrote back, I'm sorry, what's crazy? And he said, it's crazy how fast this worked. And we only did a little bit. To which I wrote back, and you're just starting, kid. Like, this is just the beginning. So I'm super excited for him because he wants a sense of normalcy.
Right.
He wants to feel like his normal self. He, gratefully, unlike a lot of us adults who've, been just filled with all sorts of conditionings and all that, he knows he's great. He knows he's got so much potential. And he's super excited to get out there and live it. But he feels this ball and chain on his ankle that every time he starts to go for it, this body reaction happens. And so I'm super excited to see, my gosh, we had just started.
Yeah.
And now this. I mean, I've got lots of stories, but that's my favorite one right now because it's the newest, and he's the youngest, and it's the first guy I've worked with.
Right. Well, and being a guy, but also being in that team mentality as well.
Right.
There could be more resistance sometimes.
You would think, yeah. But he was so, people get to the place where they're like, I'm so tired of this issue. I've worked on it. I've talked about it. I've done Reiki around it, and not to bash any of that.
Right.
But when you get to the place where something is just not getting unstuck, that's where this comes in. That's where this can really just relieve things. And I think I shared with you the woman who was biting her nails, and there was just scabs all around her fingers, so much that she was afraid to, if I remember correctly, she no longer did videos because she didn't want to be seen. She no longer did speaking because she didn't want people to see her. She stopped going out with people. It started to just really darken her world.
Yeah.
She had one session, and this is very common. She had one session, worked on that issue, and then 2 weeks later, she posted a picture, and her nails look like mine, which need a manicure. But she had, you couldn't see, there were no more scabs.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the power of belief coding. It really gets to the main trapped emotion and the core event where it started.
And then the process of working through that, and then coding a new belief.
Yes.
Right.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so can you give some different examples of issues that people might come up with that might feel stuck? Because I want to help trigger people's minds for themselves, but also for friends and family.
Yeah, so I wrote some of them down. Some people, because I thought this might be a question. So we really work with some of the limiting beliefs that continue to come up. And some of them are like, I'm always late. I'm not organized. Nothing ever goes right for me. It's their fault because you're making me feel like these are patterns people have in their lives. I'm not confident. Why are they so much better than me? I'm not good enough to do this. It's not for me. I always attract bad luck. These are just some thoughts. I'm always making the wrong decision. I've had people who come to me because They can't make friends, or there's relationship, like just can't, I think I'm doing all the right things to have a relationship and it's not working. In fact, men are repelling from me. Like, what's the deal? Um, People come about, I know people in the belief coding community work with chronic illness, anxiety, depression. Some
Mm,
specialize in addictions, which would be my specialty. I work more with people who feel like high performance women who also have a divine connection, who want to get out of their way, who
yeah,
really, no matter how much they're talking about things, they're just stuck with it. I mean,
yeah,
there's so many different topics that come up that, in the more specific you are, the more this works rapidly. So if you come with a broad one, like I have anxiety, that could take maybe 4 sessions or so, but
okay.
it's not like a year of therapy, right?
Right, right. And okay, so that's a really good point because, some things can be handled in one session, but
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, that it's not necessarily like the magic bullet one time. That some things might take a little deeper work,
Well, and
right?
it does. I've found this even for me. This is this is kind of the irony. Because I had that belief I mentioned earlier that I'm the one it's not going to work for, I hadn't had my own breakthrough with belief coding because I had that belief. So we also have to work with people sometimes first to say, do you, and we use kinesiology too to kind of find out these answers. Do you believe belief coding can work for you? And when the
Mm,
body shows us no, but you're saying, yes, I want it to work, but there's a
yeah,
no in there, there's a reason for that no. And the subconscious is holding on to that. And so we work with that first. And then sometimes when you just clear that resistance that's in there, it clears up so many other things that are attached to that resistance. So that's one thing. And the second thing is, some people have a secondary gain for keeping the pattern. Like, what's the secondary gain? Maybe for biting nails. Well, my mom used to bring me sandwiches and special gloves for my hand. I felt loved. So
mm,
sometimes we don't want to let go of our patterns because it's associated with a positive. And so when we
yeah,
can find first if there's a secondary gain that's attached to your original discomfort, we work with that secondary gain first, because there's no sense going to therapy and talking about how I want this and I want that when the whole time that big engine is running that says, oh no, we're keeping this thing. Right.
right,
So, like, you waste hundreds and thousands of dollars trying to
yes,
figure out what's going on when you really didn't want it in the first place.
right.
So we figure that out first to make sure that we're not going to use your session only to get someplace and then your body's still like, not doing it, you know? So that's really powerful. And I don't see that happening in any kind of modality.
Okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, because I mean, I have a couple different healing modalities myself, and
Yeah.
I do think the people that come to me, like I've only had maybe a couple clients in all my years of doing regression therapy,
Right.
they themselves put up their own wall, like that it's they will only go to a certain point of relaxation
Yes.
because the ego is so strong. It's like, nope, we don't want to go
Yeah. Yeah.
there.
Yeah. And the subconscious is super strong because it's protecting you. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
only going to show you, my brother, my he's number 5, I'm number 6 in the family. In 2013, he was randomly attacked and beaten and left to die in a ditch. And his body, gratefully he survived, but his body still is carrying the trauma. His
Okay.
left hand will shake. He finds it hard to, like, tie a fishing line. His speech is a little bit less slurred than it used to be, but it's slurred. And so, and his walk is different. And so when I share with him about the opportunity he has with belief coding, it scares him
Okay.
because he's afraid that he's going to remember what happened to him, because he doesn't remember.
Okay.
And but he's so scared that even when I tell him the subconscious will never show you what you're not ready for.
Yeah.
It'll bring up other things to help prepare you along the way. And one day you will be ready for the next thing. It's always going to show you what's here to work with and is available today. That's the most dominant thing that's available for you to work with. And that's what we find out in belief coding. And so my dream is for my brother to actually do the process, and then I get to, see the
Yeah.
results, but we're not there yet. And
Okay.
that's okay.
Sometimes with family, it takes a little longer.
Yeah, it does. It does. Well, he's, I always say that when you come from a big family, you get to pick your favorites.
Yes.
He's my favorite brother.
I
But
love that.
Lisa, I've had, you asked earlier about some sessions. I've had a number of people go to past lives. I've had um, experiences with people who are actually not going to a past life, but going to a life as an alien, or even as a tree, or as an eagle. Like, they have these experiences that come forward. And
Yeah.
I know people want to go, some people want to go like, oh, how do you know you're not just making that up? Maybe you are. But that's what the subconscious brought forward for you to work with. If you're making it up about being a bird, there's a metaphor in there. There's something in that experience that's there for your growth and your learning, that is there right now. And in this process, we don't go for anything that comes up. We find the dominant thing that is most in the way and creating the current discomfort. So it's not just like some, any metaphor or anything that comes up. It's, we use the body to help us know what the exact thing is to work with.
Yeah.
And so that's different than, just making stuff up. I've had people who just start crying. My friend Debbie, when I was first starting, she wanted to do a session, and she's always in for trying all my new things, but she did the session and she wanted to work on the clutter in her house. We've been working on this for years. Like, she's done all my programs, she's made progress, but this thing just kept getting her. And she started crying in the session. She goes, I don't know why I'm crying. I said, it's okay. You go with it. And what came forward was a past life. And she said again, April, I don't know why I'm crying. And she saw a man, and she saw, like, once she got into the story, it all made sense. And happy to report, like, her house is the cleanest it's ever been in all these years that I have known her, from when even I was a teacher, is when I knew her. So it's this, anything can come forward, and we just use it and work with it, because we're energy.
We are.
Work with that energy that wants to move, to clear, to be through you, so that you can be the conduit, so you can be in the receiving, and so you can be in the giving.
Well, I loved my experience with you doing my belief coding, and I forgot, that was like a few months ago now.
It feels like forever ago, yeah.
It feels so long ago. And, when you're like, okay, think of something where you feel stuck, and I'm just like, I don't know what to pick. So, I picked something that wasn't necessarily like a deep stuckness. It was cold calling.
Yeah.
Because I want to get out into the hotels, right? I want concierges to be promoting the UFO tours. And I have had a couple professions where I had to cold call. And even though I am good at it, I know how to do it. It's not fun for me, right? That would I need to do things that are fun.
Right.
So when we did the session and I got to experience the different modalities that are incorporated into belief coding, it was fascinating, because I have experienced all of those modalities independent of each other, right? And they go only so far on their own. But when you're incorporating all of these different ways of operating with the energy and the body and the computer of the body, right? So we were able to, in the one session, really make a huge transformation for me.
Yeah.
And even though still I haven't gone to the hotels in all these months, but money just started flowing in.
It did. I remember our text messages. You're like, well, I got a few more. And then it was like, I got a few more. And then it was like, I got a few more. Oh my God.
Yeah. And I don't feel the resistance to now going to the hotels. And in fact, one of the concierges, just as an example, one of the concierges that I had signed up with a year ago, who they have 5 different hotels that their company sits at. Well, it had taken a long time for her to get my paperwork processed. And I mean, like, it was a big process. We had to do it twice. And it was really frustrating for me. Just frustrating. Like, why can't you get your shit together? And so finally, and it was only a couple weeks ago, she's like, well, I need your new certificate of insurance. I'm like, I didn't even know I was set up with you. Okay, here it is. Because you never told me that I was officially set up so I could actually go talk to your people because I'm already in the system. So at least now I know. I have 5 resorts where people, I'm in the system, and all I have to do is just go like, hey, this is who we are.
And you didn't even really have to do the cold calling. Like, you wanted it to be fun and graceful and easy. And oh my God, Lisa, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my God, congratulations.
Share that with you.
That is so awesome.
Because it's different going in where I don't have to sell them something, right? Because it's just sharing.
Yeah.
And really that's what it's about. It's just sharing. Like, I know not my tour is not going to be for everyone. Not everyone likes UFOs and aliens. Yeah. But there are a lot of people who do that are kind of in the closet about it.
Right.
If they know it exists, then they have another nighttime opportunity because
I'm so happy for you. I mean, you were on fire.
So
I mean, the slew of text messages, the one after the other, and then the book coming out, and then just the way you're messaging online is just, the energy behind it is so strong right now. And then hearing this on top of it, oh my gosh, Lisa.
Well, and I would just want to share another win from this because, again, I want people to do this with you. Yeah. Everyone needs to do this. And so I am part of a summit right now, one of those free spiritual summits that you and I have been a part of, right? And this one, though, I am sharing about the galactic message. And it's the first summit where I've really been where I've done that, right? All the other ones have been my other topics that I do, human design and past life and sacred soul space, love. So this time I'm like, okay, it's full galactic. Well, out of all the summits that I've been in, this is the most successful summit I have ever been a part of in terms of people actually signing up for my free meditations. Also, I am selling a package. I have a bundle package that, I'm splitting with the producer, but I already have so many people that have signed up, paid money for my bundle package.
Oh my gosh, Lisa.
And that did not happen at these other summits when I was able to sell something.
Oh my gosh, Lisa, that's a huge win.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love this.
Right?
I love this.
Wanted to share that with you live instead of texting.
That's incredible. I mean, I think that it's amazing what happens after the sessions, because sometimes people don't really can feel really nothing. And that's quite often because you've been restored into a normal, natural state. Like, we don't notice your skin when it's just normally actually there. So when things just kind of return, you just start operating.
Yeah.
And you don't notice it sometimes even for months later when you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just not realizing I've been doing this, or I haven't been doing this for so long. There was one woman who walked into an elevator and then was like, oh my gosh, I walked into an elevator. Like, that was her thing. She came in about heights, fear of heights and fear of elevators. And she just found herself in an elevator one day, didn't even think about it.
Wow.
And that's the kind of thing that can happen. And then the other thing is that when you clear one thing, when you're clearing the core thing, that core thing is attached to so many other things, right? And so if you're working on this thing over here, you're not getting this one. You still have like 4 other experiences that were attached to this one. So you and I might have not even gotten to the core. We might have gotten to a big one offside of the core that impacts, a lot of things, but there could be some things still in there that are associated with this that you get to work on next. And you've done the process, so it should be pretty easy next time.
Right. Yeah.
So that's beautiful. So beautiful to hear.
So for people that are watching or listening, again, I would encourage you to like consider getting a session. Do you do a little like talking to people about it before they sign up? Because it's not a like small amount of money, right? To do
Well,
this,
it's a 2 hour session.
but it's
So
like if you think about all the money, the time, like if you have been in therapy for years, the amount of energy that it
yes,
takes to drive to the therapist, sit there, talk about it,
yeah,
and then drive home. And, you
yeah,
know, I know some people who have been in therapy for years,
yes, about the
right?
same
And
thing.
they are still not healed of
Yep.
their issues.
Yep.
And
I've had people come in and they, we start talking about it. They're talking to me about the same thing they've been in therapy about. And then we start doing some of the process and they're like, oh, I know what this is going to be about. And I have to go, wait, stop. You're here in your conscious mind. We're not here to talk about anything really.
yeah,
We're going to let the body tell us what to talk about. We're going to let this process tell you what to talk about. And I cannot tell you how many people have said all these years of therapy and I've been talking about that thing and it's really been this.
yeah,
Oh my gosh. So it's like, what is the value that you put on that? What is the value of finding out now instead of years from now? And
right.
and what's the cost of not finding out right now?
Yeah, I love that because it's true. I mean, just all of the things that I've ever done in my life. I mean, and there are a lot of things that I have really gotten the value out
Yeah,
of, right?
yeah, for sure, for sure.
And there are some things where I'm like, okay, well, that was a learning.
We've all had those.
Yeah, that was some education.
For both of you, probably the person doing it. Yeah, we're all learning. Yes, we're all out here. Yeah,
We are. So I'm just so excited that you are one of these amazing practitioners and you get to now be training other practitioners. Again, for those of you listening that are already in the healing field or already in the life coaching field, you know, this is something to consider because it is so new to the United States. It's not saturated.
not yet, but I think it will be. I mean, I know that Jessica's goal is to have this be in the lexicon of, what kind of modalities are you training or what kind of modalities do you offer? CBT, EFT, belief coding, like it's part of the list. And I believe it will be the way that it has just literally taken off since just last year.
Yeah, excellent. And okay, and the other thing, so you're in Texas,
Yeah,
but I'm in Hawaii, and so this is something that you can absolutely do
for sure.
like over
Yep.
Zoom,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. In fact, I haven't yet, and partly because of the pandemic, but I haven't yet seen a client in person.
Okay.
I'm curious. I'm actually going to have my first one. She's a feng shui, very successful feng shui designer here in Austin. She came over to my house. I used her years ago. She came over and we were talking about what she's going to do to my house. And I told her about belief coding, and she was like, "Sign me up. I want to do this." And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure." Like thinking, "Oh, everybody says that."
Yeah.
She's like, "No, can you come over next Friday?" And I was like, "Actually, I can." Because we can do it out in my Zen garden. And I was like, that's going to be amazing, right?
Right?
I haven't done somebody in person, so it should be really interesting. But no, I mean, I've got people all over the world,
Yeah.
so I'm not getting on a plane, and it's easy, and it's a 2 hour session. It can be
Yeah.
an hour and a half, but it's especially for first timers, it's a 2 hour session because there's some debriefing we need to do and make sure you understand, and we really talk and make sure that we know what we're going in for, and we get to code in the new beliefs. And
Right.
that's the fun part, is like you're thinking about what the discomfort is, and if you could wave a magic wand and code in a belief that you'd love to walk around totally believing,
Right.
like I wanted to believe that I'm free of this contract. Like I'm super excited. They're like, oh my God, now it's true. One session for me, even like the one who believes that I can't be helped. It's one session for me. And that's because I came in really specific. But I'll tell you, I was only specific because I've been struggling with this and really thinking about like what is the issue here for me. So I did a lot of journaling, and I'm a belief code facilitator. So I did some sessions on myself, but I got to a point where I was like, I can't do this on myself.
Mm.
I want someone else to walk me through this, because I want to hear what their take is and the questions they might see that I'm not going to see when I'm doing this to myself. So,
Right. Yeah, and I think based on my experience with you, I can see where having a, an outside facilitator, especially when you're getting into the story,
yeah,
whatever, that
yeah,
it's,
yeah.
yeah.
Or even a past life,
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I
right,
like, the past life, or
right.
whatever it
Yeah,
is.
for sure.
It's better to have someone external ask you the questions.
Yeah.
And especially, and I will say from a human design point, if you are a manifesting generator or a generator, you need that external stimulus.
Yes.
Because if you are asking yourself the questions, you're in your head,
Yeah.
which, mhm,
You're only going to get so far.
right.
You'll only get so far, for sure.
Yeah. Um, okay. So I've never asked you this before. This is a curiosity question that, since we are a connection to the cosmos, this is the show. Have you ever had any UFO or alien experiences that you are aware of, or thought, that was weird?
Um, I had, yes. And it was an entity. I was just graduating from my master's program. So I was really deeply immersed in my own spiritual development and growth and shifting and changing energy and all of that. And I was in my little efficiency apartment a long time ago. And I had a dream.
Yeah.
Um, I don't remember it now, but there was an entity there and we were literally taking things out of me. And I was okay with it. Like,
Mhm.
don't need that. I don't want that. This is harmful. Like, we were just detoxing me, like literally pulling things out of me. And it went on and on. And I was just allowing and just allowing and allowing. And then the dream got weird because I looked up. I think I woke up. I don't know. It's kind of hard to put words on this. And there was like a clock above me.
Mhm.
And of course, it wasn't out of place because the mindset I was in, the place I was in, like that was okay. And then I turned to look at my clock on the stand and it had melted, kind of like in that painting of like
Like
everything.
a Salvador Dali
Yeah,
painting.
yeah, yeah. It was
Yeah.
like that. It melted. And then I was like, okay, that is unusual. Like
Mhm.
that, I must be dreaming then. And I was sad because I didn't want to go away from the entity that was helping me to let go.
Yeah.
And then I looked just a little bit more to the left and there was an entity there and it felt so loving and so bright and just such a loving presence, but it startled me.
Okay.
And so
And
I startled right out of it. And then I was like, no, wait, no, come back. I really wanted to be there. And so that
yeah.
would probably be the closest that I had to being in that kind of experience. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful one. And so, do you have any recollection if that was your one and only experience? Like, do you remember that particular entity ever coming back
Um,
to work with you consciously?
not consciously. The energy of it feels similar to other experiences. There's like a thread of common energy
Yeah.
in that awakening, quickening
Hmm.
Kundalini experience I had last year. There's a similar pulse signature in that
Okay.
I recognize. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and so since you've had that awakening and the veils were all lifted, all these curtains. Okay, so are they still lifted? And what is that experience like for you?
No.
Oh.
And I remember I talked to my spiritual teacher and he told me, he said, don't hold on to it.
Mm,
It will go and it will come back. You'll have more. But I could feel myself holding on. I
yeah.
mean, I was saying things to my husband, like I started using the word we. Like, we know this is coming. This is inevitable. We need to prepare. Like, there was a lot of things that were coming forward, and I was starting to use the word we, and he kind of looked at me, and I was like, "This is a truth for me right now. It's a we right now."
Yeah.
And that's why I needed to get myself grounded, get in the garden for whatever reason. Flowers were finally like, "Yay, she knows how to do this now."
Hmm.
And because I'm not very good with that at all, but I needed to be in that connection. And um, I've tried to stay connected to that as deeply as possible, or do a lot of meditation, or journaling, but it's not the same.
Okay.
And again, I was warned, don't try to hold on to it,
Yeah.
so.
Well, and so you just mentioned your spiritual teacher, which you didn't do in your bio, but
Yeah.
you have been working with a spiritual teacher for
Yeah.
how many years?
Well, I've had one for 22 years, and
Yeah.
he's kind of one who walks amongst us kind of people. He's 82 and lives here in Austin, and has been my meditation teacher for a very long time. And he's soft and gentle. And then after my son was born, my son is 11, I started working with another teacher who I don't believe is from this planet.
Mm-hmm.
He lives out in the mountains of California, probably literally makes his own energy. He throws energy off wherever he goes. Even some science people have tried to test him, and he blew up their machines. This is what I've heard from one person who's worked with him that I know.
Yeah.
His work is very, no, it's personal in that everything, you are the creator. So
Yeah.
that way it's personal, but it's not personal. Like, he's not loving. He's
Okay. Not the gentle.
he's not soft and cushy and caring. And he, any kind of specialness that shows up, he's quick to get it out of there. I grew up with specialness. It's how I kind of survived in that environment. So it's been a pretty, kind of like holding onto the bumper on a rocky road with him, but I'm holding on. And sometimes I get in the back seat. I'll never be in the front seat, but it opens my eyes to other possibilities and what's real.
Okay. And so what have you found in terms of letting go of that desire or need to be special, feel special? I mean, is that still like an onion? Like,
It's an onion, yeah, for me. But I'll tell you that the work that I do with him, there's a lot of meditative practices where it's all about how you are being on the inside while you're doing on the outside. And because the body's such an indicator, if your fingers are wide, it indicates kind of where your mind is and what you're attaching to, instead of staying in your center. So there's a lot of body practices that I go into it going, I don't know why I'm, breathing out one nostril or sitting with my knee like this, but I come to find out later, and it makes sense, and it starts to fine tune itself into my world and how I exchange with people, places, and things. And so it doesn't go against anything I've learned and all the years of studying, but it amplifies and fine tunes and tosses off the fat. So but it's different, and it's pretty radical. And I don't talk about him too much because I think he's like listening.
right. Well, does he say don't talk about the work that you guys do together, or
No,
who?
not at all. No,
Okay.
he doesn't. I mean, the languaging that he uses. I did ask him once because he's got a whole manual of things, and I mean, just to call him a black, whatever, 5th-degree black belt is, or whatever it is, it's ridiculous because he's beyond that. Like, he's like a Yoda, seriously.
Okay.
But he says, share what you know
Mm.
and share what you are handling. And what that means is, I'm not just learning, it's not just up here, it's that I'm actually applying it and using it and being it and learning from it, and it's growing within me. That's what to share.
Yeah.
Not, hey, that's really good, I found that at a seminar and I want to be able to say that because I get it. It's more about, it's even more than embodying it, it's the beingness of it.
Yeah.
So I'm allowed to share, but I don't use the words that he uses because they're from the tradition that came before Buddhism. I think the Bampo tradition or something. I don't know.
Okay.
That's such a story, and I'm afraid to ask him because he always asks me why. I want to know.
What's interesting about that, what you just said, is that the alien race known as the Vegans, they are the ones that are thought to have brought that original spirituality, pre-Buddhism,
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and pre like Native American spirituality, there are a few different core things. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there.
Darn right, he's not from this planet.
Yeah, from that point of view. Well, okay, so we are running out of time now. So I would just love you to share with how people can find you and anything else, any final words that you want to share.
Well, I love this. I love just chatting, and that's just like my favorite thing to do. There's no script. There's no pretense. It's just you and I talking, and everybody gets to chime in, and I love that. And you can find me at aprildodd.com. And if you want the belief coding, it's aprildodd.com/belief coding. And if you want to just talk about that and see if it's a fit for you at this time. I mean, of course I do my coaching, and that might be a better fit, but I'll help you to figure out what might be the best fit right now. There's a link on my website for just a call, just a connection call. We can just figure out what's the fit for you. And most people do walk away with a nice little nugget gem of a next step for themselves that feels really aligned.
Oh, you're cutting out a little bit, April.
You got me?
Okay,
there?
Now you're back. So that last little bit.
Yeah.
Whatever you just.
I don't know what we missed.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
we got new internet.
You have the connection call, and then after that.
And if and in that connection call, we find out what's the best fit for you right now. And it doesn't even have to be about being with me, working with me. It might not be a fit. I want you to feel good about this. But most people do walk away with some sort of gem of a next step within themselves and an aha that they hadn't thought about before. So there's something that you get out of that short call. And for those who just want to kind of see what it's all about, just kind of follow along and kind of develop a relationship, I just invite anybody to come join me in my Facebook group called Spiritual Mom Babes. It's a private group. So if you type in Spiritual Mom Babes, you might get 2. I had some stalkers when I first created it. So if you type in Spiritual Mom Babes into Facebook, you'll probably get that one. The one that has the more people in it, it's Spiritual Mom Babe. So Facebook/groups/Spiritual Mom Babe. I had to take off the S to create a private group. Otherwise, I kept getting all these stalkers. So, it's the sign of the time. So that's a great group to come in. I give free tips and tools and videos, and I'll be doing some new workshops. I'm going to be creating a new coaching group for those out there who are coaches for tips and tools, just some tricks to really stay connected with your clients and really have that impact. So that's coming soon as well. But you'll find out all about that if you're in one of my groups, either sign up for my website or the Spiritual Mom Babes.
Yeah, excellent. And for those of you that are listening and not seeing how her name is spelled, it's April, April, and Dodd, Dodd. So aprildodd.com.
Yep. Yeah. Wonderful.
Well, thank you so much for being here and taking the time and sharing with me and everyone else all of your gifts. And what I can say, knowing you for the years that I have and knowing the experiences that you've gone through in your life, like you are the real deal. Like you live your life. Your life is not perfect. Your family isn't perfect, just like mine. And, we're human, right?
Yeah,
and so we're through this. So you're a beautiful example of dealing with the things as they come up and figuring out what's the best way to navigate life.
Yeah. Climbing out of the rubble all the time, but differently and with more tools each time. Yeah. Excellent. And that's the key.
Yes. Well, for those of you watching or listening, thank you so much. And I hope next time, aloha.
Yeah. Thank you.